So high sensitivity, no, there we go. High sensitivity, highly sensitive person was sort of the first word that was used back in the 1990s when Elaine Aron, a psychologist, first introduced the term to, the scientific community as a personality trait. Later, now we have the term high sensory processing sensitivity. It's pretty much the same thing. SPS is more used in scientific publications, of which we are starting to see some coming up actually. Which is really nice to see that there are studies done on highly sensitive people, because it is not an ICD diagnosis. So maybe the statistical background has not been as easy to get as something that is clinically diagnosed and reported. So now we are seeing more and more researchers of the medical and psychological profession having an interest, and I will introduce a few of those studies to you later. So for now, there are a couple of models on what is high sensory processing sensitivity. And as all models are wrong, some are useful, I will introduce just 3 of them to you today, and they all share sort of the same basic characteristics. So none of them is wrong, but they're all sort of looking at different nuances and perspective of what sensory processing sensitivity means. So first, of course, Elaine Aron, what the acronym does, first defined 4 traits that highly sensitive people have. And the first one is the depth of processing. So whatever information comes in is processed deeply, is processed over a long time, it's linked to all sorts of different experiences that people had before. So that is sort of the main characteristic, I would say, of highly sensitive people, or one of the main characteristics. Then overstimulation means that this high sensitivity to all sorts of stimuli that come from outside, may it be social interactions, may it be lights or noises, and so on and so forth, they sort of enter the system without filters, and that can very quickly lead to overstimulation in highly sensitive people. What she also noticed is that highly sensitive people are usually very empathic, and they have a high emotional reactivity. Could also be in a different way, could be, say, to emotional response ability. So responding to other people's emotion, feeling into some other people and knowing sort of, what's going on with them, and thus having high empathy. And the last one in this acronym is sensitivity to subtleties. So noticing small details, noticing shifts in the energy of the room, or the feeling that a group of people has. Could be visual things, could be auditory things. So it's the subtleties, the small things that highly sensitive people notice, and which also might lead to overstimulation, because all these little details are processed. They're processed very deeply. And so there's a lot of information in the system of a highly sensitive person through an average day, right? Right, then later on, many other people came and wrote. By now, there are lots of books about it. I spent the first 30 years of my life not knowing about high sensitivity and wondering what was wrong with me in a way. And that's the experience of many highly sensitive people. But that was 20 years ago. And back then, there were a handful of books, if you're lucky. And now there is a whole plethora of books. So information is coming out, and it's available to people who are wondering about their perception of the world. So Imi Loh, a psychologist from Britain, she has listed 5 traits. They're very similar to the original ones from Aron. So greatly heightened perceptions, right? So perceiving what's out in the world, but also what's happening inside. Perception of one's own emotion, of one's own body functions, of heartbeat, of feelings coming up. So temperature, everything is perceived at a heightened stage for highly sensitive people. Also, emotional depth, intensity, and complexity ties into the emotional reactivity that Aron described. So everything is very intense, and And the depth of what's felt can be quite intense as well. Also empathy and sensibility, it's also a great depth to it. And resulting probably from all of this is a rich inner life, fed by all these heightened sensitivities of the senses. So a vivid imagination, an active mind, lots going on inside, which also means creative potential. And depending on where the focus is, might also lead to existential fears that some highly sensitive people report from all the processing, from all the thinking about what's happening in the world, what's happening in my life, what's happening like everywhere around us. Okay, then some people, there are sort of different words for sensitivity. Some people say flexibility, adaptability, and these next two authors have chosen the word responsiveness, because highly sensitive people respond more to almost everything, respond more to heartbreak and pain and so on, but also respond more to beauty, to new ideas, to joy. So everything is more intense. So that's the intensity that people experience as highly sensitive people. And they also allude to the depth of processing, so keeping to think about things, keeping to go deeper with topics. And they are talking about 3 types of responsiveness. So it's a low sensory threshold. So noises and lights and all these kind of things are experienced quite strongly. Ease of excitation goes back into the emotional intensity and also overstimulation. And then the aesthetic sensitivity, right, for beauty and what's happening in life. And also visual sensitivity. If something's beautiful or ugly, that's sort of really affecting highly sensitive people a lot more. Excellent. So the thing is, it's not only found in humans. By now, people have discovered that sensory processing sensitivity is found in over 100 species, including fishes, birds, primates, and it's thought to be an evolutionary advantage if a small number of a group has this heightened sensitivity to its surrounding, right? So it's thought to be a survival strategy, and that may facilitate behavior to look for resources, provide responsive care to others, and also to avoid threat, as seen in this picture here with the antelopes, I think. Don't know what animals they are, and one of them looking for threats in the environment and noticing something has changed back there. So high sensory processing sensitivity is not a weakness, and it's not something that needs to be fixed, which is something, at least people of my generation, and also today, a younger generation coming up, although they have lots more information. If you are in a surrounding where high sensitivity is not known, then many highly sensitive people report the feeling of something's wrong with me. I don't know. I don't react the same as my environment. People give me feedback that something, the way I perceive the world is not correct. And so this feeling comes up that, well, something is wrong with me. I need to fix it. So that's not what high sensory processing sensitivity is. And it's also not a superpower or an excuse or a fanciful trend, which we see in social media and some coaching scenes these days that try to sort of sell high sensitivity as sort of, it's a superpower and you can do all these things. It's not. It's a trait, so it's a personality trait, and it's associated with a high level of perceptual attention. And for individuals, it can be a challenge, but it can also be an advantage. Has both sides. I think every trait sort of has both sides, depending on the environment that you're in and how you are working with the traits. What's the word? Yeah, with the trait itself. And as a temperament trait, it's also now widely accepted throughout biology. I mentioned the example that over 100 non-human species, it has been found that they also have a small percentage of highly sensitive animals in the group. And it indeed comes with differences in wiring of the brain and nervous system response. And So we're going back to the what I mentioned before about scientific studies slowly coming on being published on high sensitivity and what's happening in the brain of highly sensitive people as compared to less sensitive people. So I'm not a neuroscientist, and studies on SPS brains are only starting to emerge. So I want to give you just a small overview of some of the studies and what they are beginning to find, right? So high sensitivity in these studies is determined via a questionnaire. It's the HSP scale that was originally invented by Elaine Aron and has been modified over the years to comply with new findings. And so the studies I'm showing to you are MRI studies done with groups of variously like highly sensitive people and less sensitive people as comparison, and to see what's different in highly sensitive brains when they are doing specific tasks, like looking at pictures, or when they are at rest after an activity. Okay, so, and they have found out that SPS brains tend to show more prominent activity in regions that are implicated in empathy. We've heard it's a trait, social processing and reflective thinking. So the depth of processing is here as well. And highly sensitive individuals also assign a high precision to incoming sensory signals. And that means that all everything I hear, for example, has the same meaning, has the same priority. So for me, when I'm, for example, at a party or in a busy cafe, after a while, I will not be able to hear my neighbor speaking to me because I hear other people talking, I hear the coffee machine working, I hear the kitchen clattering, and it just becomes so much that my brain, well, my system sort of overloads and cannot differentiate or filter out the one signal that I'm interested in, the person I'm talking to, versus everything else that's happening in my surrounding. What's also been shown is that regions that mediate reward to positive stimuli only, hormonal balance, calm, empathy, self-reflecting, reflective thinking, and self-control are more activated, and also brain areas that are involved in high order visual processing, greater reactivity to emotional stimuli, and with effective touch. So science is sort of slowly catching up on the model that was based on empirical and self-information data. Now they're looking into the brain of highly sensitive people to see what is different. And so these were all task-based, and now there is one study that looked at what's happening with highly sensitive brains that are at rest compared to lower sensitivity individuals. And they showed that after an activity, when the brain is at rest, the person is at rest, there's a pattern of neuroactivity or connectivity in regions that are implicated in deliberate cognitive processing, memory consolidation, and physiological homeostasis. And that fits very well with what so many highly sensitive people report, is that they need a lot of downtime, a lot of time alone, sort of need to retreat after intense days that were full of stimuli, maybe social stimuli or other noises, sights, and so on and so forth, or emotionally intense. So they could show that indeed highly sensitive brains take a lot longer to sort of unwind, because in the meantime, they are still processing the data. And so there's lots going on, lots of energy still being needed for the brain to do the deep processing, and thus highly sensitive people need the downtime after intense days. And now there's another interesting thing that comes with high sensitivity. It's differential susceptibility. That means highly sensitive people may benefit much more from positive environments, from positive interventions, than not as sensitive people. But also they have a more detrimental effect of stressful environments and stressful experiences. right? So again, it's the intensity of the scale that goes in both directions. Okay, so that's the excursion into the world of medical science. Let's go back to the day of a highly sensitive person. And I will start with the negative experiences. Why? Because that's often the way people find out about their sensitivity. You know, the feeling, well, why can't I do what my friends can do? What is wrong with me? They sort of have this. That's often what starts the questioning of what am I for highly sensitive people. So chronic stress from overstimulation might be one thing they report. Or also to be regarded by others as arrogant, weird, or weak, right? So if I'm in a really busy environment, let's say a train station, and somebody comes up to me to ask a question, I might take a little bit longer to respond because there's so much going on around me, that for somebody else, this might be, you know, they might judge like, what's going on with her? Is she arrogant? Did she not hear me? So these kind of daily things can happen, and it's what highly sensitive people actually report. Also the feeling, the pressure to adapt in order to avoid being seen as different. And in the diversity days, the last couple of speakers who talked about autism, they are talking about the very same thing, and it's called masking. So you're adapting sort of a behavior to mask your own natural innate behavior. Overthinking and feeling the feeling of failure to meet expectations. That's also something highly sensitive people often report, sort of this high perfectionism or tendency for perfectionism. And overthinking, of course, can come with the depth of processing and making connections to everything. What many highly sensitive people hear or have heard, particularly as children, is you're too emotional, you're too sensitive, you're too this, to that. So that can make people doubt their own perception of the world. And of course, internalizing emotions and taking many things deeply personal. Okay, so this is some of the experiences that highly sensitive people report when they start looking for support and guidance. Now, let's look at just the two main sort of features, the heightened perception, depth of processing, in an when it's an unfavorable situation. So highly sensitive people can easily be overwhelmed from sensory overload or over-arousal, also cognitive depletion. And that's also been shown in some studies that these brains that keep processing things over and over and at very low, high depths can be fatigued. Chronic stress can be a result of all these awareness and perception and processing. Also, overthinking and rumination, stress from perfectionism, and starting to question or doubt oneself. Okay, so this is sort of the path that some highly sensitive people are going through before they find out about high sensitivity, and then can sort of turn it and start to look at strategy for themselves. Okay, let's look at the positive of the same trait, heightened perception and depth of processing, detecting small details and minute nuances. And I think this is great for being a scientist, right? You want to see the small things. You want to see the small changes that are happening. High intuition can be a positive effect. And also in particular for team situations or also for society, to sense disturbances before they actually become problems. And then the connecting of information across many fields. Again, that's something for a scientist that's really an advantage. Even connecting things that are seemingly unrelated to come up with new and creative solutions and innovations with this nonlinear way of thinking. And as we have seen with the differential susceptibility, highly sensitive people benefit more from rest and restorative activities. So that's one of the central things that highly sensitive people really need, is the place and the space to retreat to and to restore. Right, so positive experiences, to sum up, is the deep and nuanced perception of the world, appreciating beauty, also deep spirituality, processing information and emotions deeply can lead to insights, and yes, also resilience. From what we've heard before, the negative effects with lots of stress and chronic stress and overthinking and so on and so forth. Yet high sensitivity is also associated with high resilience. So it's kind of both. And it depends on many factors in the individual life, but it's a chance for both, I would say. Being conscientious, thoughtful, and empathic, making social connections, being very attuned to values and valuing one's own values quite highly. In particular, justice is one of the main values that highly sensitive people keep reporting is important to them. Benefit from positive environments, and this keen sense for details and nonlinear way of thinking is a great chance for creativity, for novel connections, and so on and so forth. So now we've kind of heard both the negative experiences, positive experience, and lots of neutral experience in the middle, of course, as well. And I would like to now focus a bit on academia. So working in academia as a highly sensitive person or non-highly sensitive person, I think we're going through the same experiences that ideally we have a lot of freedom. So that's on the positive side, to do our research, to structure our days and so on and so forth. Research and curiosity, with the depth of processing, that's certainly really welcomed. Hopefully making a meaningful contribution. Creativity and innovation, international connections, so it's a vibrant environment and many interesting opportunities within science to make our contributions. I'm sure there are many more things that people experience. I sort of picked the main ones here. On the downside, unsecure job futures for many scientists with only temporary contracts, high pressure to publish, high pressure to perform, time pressure, and so on and so forth. Sometimes meaningless structures, depending on the bureaucracy of your university, that can be quite exhausting. The competitive environment is particularly exhausting as well, and the hierarchy, dependency, and as I said, justice is a high value for many highly sensitive people. So experiencing injustice within the system can be a great stressor. All right, so what do we do about this with all of this as highly sensitive people? So helpful as a physical work environment is, of course, when it's calm, when there's time for deep focus, and if we have some flexibility of work location, right? So I can be in the office and interact with my coworkers, or I can be in home office when I need quiet time and time for focus. That is very helpful for highly sensitive people, any neurodivergent folk. Stressful is when it's noisy or an open office plan, fluorescent lights, strong smells, disturbances, interruptions. Although talking about open office plan, I do like to work in cafes because they're if it's not too noisy, of course, but the sort of, and since I'm not talking to anyone, if I'm only working on my stuff, then the background noise sort of becomes white noise. It can be quite calming, but depends on the cafe, of course, and what's happening on that day. Right, so what strategies can we have for physical work environment to alleviate the senses a little bit is to reduce visual clutter and decorate your workplace in a pleasant way that sort of helps your nervous system to relax and not be distracted by too many things and projects around you on your desk. Plants and flowers help to make it nicer. Air purifier if you're quite sensitive to smells. Noise cancelling headphones. I'm not going anywhere without these guys anymore. So on public trains, on buses, or in the office, I usually wear them all the time. Another thing is if your phone rings a lot, you can hopefully change your phone into something that's more calm, and also take the opportunity not to sort of label it as a disturbance, but take it as a chance to take a few deep breaths before you answer. so it's inbuilt sort of mindfulness exercise, and it also gives you that small break to switch from the task you were just doing to be fully present to the person calling, right? And have some white noise or calming instrumental music if that helps you focus. Right. And the content of work, of course, no matter how sensitive they are or not, no one wants to think that their work is pointless. But some sensitive people kind of structure their entire lives around finding something that's meaningful. And work is usually experienced as meaningful when you see a real connection between the task you do and a higher purpose beyond yourself. And so now this can take many different forms, because some jobs we would immediately say, yeah, that's a meaningful job. Like a doctor saves life. We can see the meaningfulness and useful in that. But then it's also an inner perception of the job, right? In the book that's quoted here, I read a case study of a hospital janitor. And he sees his job as supporting the healing of the patients by providing a clean and safe environment for them. And he also gave his job more meaning by sometimes sitting with patients or bringing in artwork to decorate the rooms the patients were in, right? So it's both sort of a common meaning we attach to something, and then the meaning we give to something, or the meaning that we find in the small day-to-day situation that we find ourselves in with that job. And yes, building a meaningful career can sometimes also take time, right? You can find meaning in the small day-to-day events, and then depending on what really drives and motivates you, it might take some time to build this career, either to change the career that you already have to something that gives you a lot of meaning, or to find the right track or the right inner sort of view on what you're doing and how you're doing it. Maybe changing small things on how you do it can increase the meaning of the same activity. Okay. Right. The mental emotional work environment, we've heard that emotional intensity is one thing that high sensitivity, that's a definition of high sensitivity, and also the deep processing and the perception of detail. So it's the mental emotional work environment that's very, very important for mental health. So helpful is if it's trusting with your coworkers and superiors, if it's safe, respectful, if integrity is observed, and if there's time for deep work. And in a busy academic life, I know the time for deep work is sort of a rare commodity, but it's so, so important. Stressful, toxic work cultures, right? The emotions in the room is what becomes most draining for highly sensitive people. Even when it's not talked about, particularly when it's not talked about, but it's sort of brooding in the background, in the underground, between people in the team. And also the pressure to do things fast when there's no time for deep processing. So rush deadlines and internal as well as external distractions, right? Internal distractions can be thoughts and emotions popping up, and so on and so forth. And this pressure to do things in a way that is stressful to you, right? If you're rushed to meet deadlines, and so this exercise with the phone is one step to get used to check and pause, or pause and check when something is brought to you, right? Instead of frantically finally trying to find an answer that's now appropriate, this sort of taking a little bit of time to process the information that has been brought to you. You can communicate that, and you don't have to disclose your sensitivity, right? I want to stress that asking for what you need to do your best work, you don't have to talk about your sensitivity or other neurodivergent trait. You can simply communicate that in a constructive manner, right? For example, I need time to think about your question. I'll get back to you, and then you give, a specific time after lunch at 3 o'clock tomorrow. And that gives you the room that you need to process the information, right? This is one little strategy that can be useful. Now, the mental emotional work environment also includes the inner environment. And highly sensitive people may agonize for hours or possibly days over possible mistakes or errors that they may have made, or when their own work doesn't meet their high standard. Okay, so that's an inner environment that can be highly distracting for highly sensitive people. So one thing you could do is when you first arrive in the office, set intentions for the day. And I don't say make a list, to-do list, because that can be very stressful as well, but setting intentions for your workday, and also in terms of giving yourself a bit of space to process things and get out of automatic emotional reactivity is when you're stressed or when others around you are highly stressed. Try to move a little bit slower, right? Because with the sensory processing sensitivity, we're so attuned to our environment that from my own experience, I can say that when I'm in an environment where everybody is stressed and hectic and moving fast, I start to move faster and faster and get hectic and not in my best mind to make the decisions in a way that I want to do them. So trying to do work a little bit slower. When you get up to go to the bathroom, remind yourself to walk just a little bit slower. That gives your nervous system a chance to get out of that stress reaction when you do things really fast and you sort of tune into the energy of the environment. If you can have a space to retreat to, if you don't have your own office, maybe there's a park nearby. If it's really, really stressful, the bathroom always works to just briefly retreat to a couple of minutes, breathe, and return back to the situation. Of course, regular breaks are a good thing if you can go outside for a walk. And declaring quiet hours, if it's hopefully accepted or can be accepted in your work group, that really gives you a bit of time for the deep inner work that highly sensitive people so need to be working at their best. Okay, so emotions and mental space. So when coworkers are stressed, when you observe or experience injustice, when there's a range of emotions in the room, when team dynamics are off, all this can lead to the trouble for highly sensitive people to concentrate. And longer processing time also means that you likely take these emotions home with you. And I have a few strategies for what you could do to transition into your home life later on. And the mental space, if you can, to concentrate on a task without interruptions and distractions, to do your deep work, can feel like bad consciousness is creeping in when you say, well, I'm focusing only on my own thing, because every unanswered email may feel like someone you're letting down. Just be prepared for that when you set once your first experience to really declare, I'm going to work, nothing else for 2 hours. I'm not answering the phone. I'm turning off email notifications. So that bad consciousness can be talking in the back of your mind. All right. So let's wrap up some of the strategies we've heard. Sensory protection, noise canceling headphone. I said I'm not going anywhere without these guys anymore. Plants for visual comfort, and so on and so forth. Also sensory relief, take a break, do some breathing exercises, move your body, just know what your nervous system needs when it starts to become aroused and hyperactive. The nuanced perception, of course, it's a path to start to trust them. If you did not grow up in an environment that supported your detailed perception, you might have to learn to trust it, to trust your perceptions, to trust your intuition, and to initiate those the changes that you see might be necessary in the team, knowing when and with whom you feel safe to do so, of course. If you can, design your workplace, whatever is possible. Meaning, I've talked about that for a bit. Maybe there's a higher goal that your work leads towards. What for whom are you doing your work? And what is your responsibility? Sometimes, we need to consider again, okay, what can I actually control, and focus on that and not be overwhelmed by all the different other things that are so out of our control. Find like-minded people. Find a local support group or online networks, other neurodivergent folk, this is so helpful to have other people with the same perceptions as you have, the same challenges that you have.
Anja, just one thing before
yeah.
when you are changing your slide. We have quite nice, lots of questions here, 13 I see.
Okay.
Just making you aware of the time management a little bit, that we have some time left for answering the questions.
I am, absolutely. The next slides will be very, very brief, sort of wrapping slides. Okay, so if you're in doubt about your sensitivity, also allow yourself to seek professional guidance through psychological service or coaches to find out what it is and how you can progress to design your life. Okay, I promised after work what I do. I have this blind out mask and my noise cancelling headphones, and I just sit for a couple of minutes. I breathe until my nervous system sort of calms down, and then I have energy to do for the rest of my day. You can go for a walk, journal to release all these different thoughts and impressions, or follow any mind, body, or spiritual practice that you have to really transition from one part of your day to another. Okay, very briefly, so sensitivity is an individual thing, but also as a societal thing, and it hasn't started recently. In 1903, there was already a speaker saying, you know, in this modern life with a stimulating environment, and what did they have back then? Electricity, streetcars, music boxes. Very different from today's life. He was already saying, wow, this is a lot of input and we're not made for such a life. Or in 1970, Viktor Frankl said that if people are to survive in this barrage of stimuli from the mass media, that was long before the internet. That was long before we all had phones in our pocket that we scrolled through every minute of the day. It was long before social media. So we are seeing that highly sensitive people react to their environment very strongly. And I think this can help society at large to look at where we might also need changes on the structural level, right? Or in the university, at the workplace, in education. What if highly sensitive people or neurodivergent people in general are sort of an early warning system and a call for conscious living? Okay, so time management. That's the end of my presentation. Questions exchange here and now via email.
Yes.
You to contact me via email or on LinkedIn.
This is great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Let me put your contact details in the chat already before you stop sharing here. Very nice. Thank you so much. We still have the same number of people in the event, just confirming how interesting it is and relevant.
Nobody went away.
Let me you stop sharing. Very, very nice. I will directly go to the question actually, because we have some here. And let's do that.
Yeah, look forward.
And just going through them. I mean, in this order, it is in that sense random and chronological at the same time. In your experience, how common is HSP among students and staff? Maybe short answer. Let's see, depending on the question.
Well, I can only say in general, it's around 20% of the population.
20%. Okay. I would not know that either.
Yeah.
I hope this answers this.
It might vary with discipline in an academic environment.
Okay. So it's a very big group, basically. And what are the biggest mistakes that people who are not highly sensitive make towards highly sensitive people at work? Okay, so what are the biggest mistakes? What do you see or know?
Need a moment to think about that.
There is no right or wrong answer, just one point.
I think it's a matter of both sides to sort of communicate, because I think quick judgment is something hurtful to anyone. So if quick judgment is, oh, you're always taking so long, or you're too sensitive, or you're too something, you are too. I think that's the most hurtful thing that we can say to anyone, highly sensitive or not.
Yeah, relevant for other issues as well, probably at work, generally inclusive way of communication. By the way, ENHANCE also offers trainings on inclusive communication in such a setting like today with international colleagues from different universities.
Oh, perfect.
So everyone is welcome. I will just change the next question. As a lot of traits of HSP are shared with people on the autism spectrum, how do you differentiate the two?
Yeah, that's a question I've been thinking about lately a lot too, because 3 weeks ago I was at the European Geoscience Union, and there's a neurodivergent network now, and so we had this panel discussion. We shared our different views as autistic, highly sensitive, and ADHD people, and we noticed our strategies are the same. Almost all strategies almost are the same. You know, noise canceling, taking breaks, the nervous system sort of giving it a time to breathe. And I also see that the first studies are coming out that scan the brains of autistic, ADHD, PTSD, and highly sensitive people. So this would be a longer answer, and I would like to have somebody with autism sort of in the panel to answer this question in the best way. But there are some differences. But
maybe we organize the next event about this topic even.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. But you shared your observations on similarities, but also, of course, studies coming out and clarifying more and more, I think, yeah.
And also, I mean, autism is a spectrum, right? So, the high sensitivity is shared among so many neurodivergent folks. So I think that's a common thing, because otherwise, if you would add up the statistics of how many people are autistic, how many people are ADHD, how many people are highly sensitive, we would come to the majority of the population.
Yes, majority of minorities in that sense, intersectionally.
Yeah.
Okay, let me change the next question. Just go through them. Let's see how far we come. When the time is not limited, when the time is not enough, we can still ask you if you are ready to answer some questions in the follow-up email. But yeah, this is we are not there yet. We still have time. Are there known differences between the modalities of sensory input and auditory stimuli are more challenging than visual ones? Question mark. Are all channels without filter? Is it individual? So several sub-questions. How would you?
It's definitely individual, and the HSP scale that I talked about before, that is used to sort of determine whether somebody might be highly sensitive or not. It has some subscales that allude to emotional intensity, to aesthetic intensity, and so on and so forth. So I think it has 5 or 6 subscales. So it's different for some people. Some are more auditory, some are more visual, some are more on the emotional side. Yeah.
Thank you for that. By the way, looking at this more technical question, of course, we will make sure that the presentation will be shared also with you and potentially some resources as well. So just be aware of that, everyone. Thanks for answering this one. Let me change to the next one. The next question is, what should the universities of the ENHANCE Alliance to do to deal better with this topic? You can answer this from your university, RWTH Aachen perspective, or you can dare a European answer. It's up to you.
Yeah, I think what's happening right now with the diversity days is already a good start, where lots of people who are neurodivergent can have a platform to talk about their experience, because I think that's what really helps to hear from somebody who's going through that experience, to experience how these people are when they're not masking. And to exchange on that. And during one of the evening discussions, there was the same question, what can we do? And I think events like this, because and trainings, as you said, but then again, it's on the individual level, right? So depending on the environment of your team, it might be different, whether you feel safe to talk about it with your boss or with your lecturer. For example, if you have a diagnosis, do you declare it? Do you need to declare it to get extra time to an exam? So there are different, it's quite complex. And I think what we're doing right now is a really good start to make it aware and saying, well, we're here, and it's a chance also, right? To have the perception.
Thanks for answering. I mean, in a way, in ENHANCE Lunchinar, we also share always a tool, a practical tool to be used at the end of the session. And actually, I had the impression your whole presentation can be considered as a tool for everyone, and you can just pick what you want to use as a strategy, practical approaches, which I think that's why it makes it very relevant for everyone interested in the topic on individual level and even on organizational levels. Okay, and sorry. I am just clicking to the next question. which goes like, how do you make connections as an autistic person? In a professional setting, it is very important to make connections and network. A lack of these skills can make it hard to get good opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there are more and more support group for autistic people where you can connect with other autistic people. I think that would be the way to go, right? Because my neurodivergence is a little bit different from autism. So I don't want to answer for autistic people, but I know same with finding other highly sensitive folk really helps, and helps to find other autistic people, see what your university has, what ENHANCE may be offering. I'm sure resources to connect to others.
Exactly. If there is no network existing, for example, in one of the universities, you can, of course, start one, easy to say.
For example.
But I am sure the universities, including the alliance behind the university, is more than happy within their capacities to support any networking building process. We just have it actually in one of the ENHANCE universities right now, supported by ENHANCE Seed Fund. And the student is just establishing the first neurodiversity network in the university that is happening right now in Aachen. So we are also happy to connect you with those engaged people to share good practices.
Yeah, there's also voices for autistic people and also look for your like the European Geoscience Union, look for unions, and they have a neurodivergent network now, and that is a global network. So also look outside your university.
The next question is about your working place. In this case, it's RWTH. And what is the most urgent thing that you need to perform better with your background in the university? I think it's meant, and I think everyone can look for the answer for their own universities. But what would be your answer? What do you really need?
Yeah, it sounds like for me personal. So I'm quite lucky. I have a permanent position, and I've had it for quite a long time. And it's this. I work in a very open team. Right, so I can communicate openly about what I need, and people are not offended when I leave a busy social meeting without saying goodbye. They just know, okay, Anja needs her downtime. It's fine, you know. So I already have, well, apart from the building itself, but I can't change that. So I'm quite lucky to be in a good position. Yeah.
I see. Thank you. The next question that I have here, are there any smell-related practical tips that anyone has that are not as expensive as an air purifier? I think you mentioned that object. Also PC, you cannot bring one with you on the bus.
Right. Yeah, there are two things I have. I have this small spray. I was going to grab it, but it's a different drawer. So it's a spray that I like for my office. And also there are these small roll-on aromatherapy vials. And so, for example, peppermint or something else that calms, just put it on your wrist and smell it. That can help. There are these small little things you can put in your pocket.
Okay, very good to know. Thanks for this practical answer. The next question, let's see how far we come. I'm looking more at the time.
I'm trying to give short answers so we can get as many.
I think it's perfectly, and it's also being recorded, so I think everyone can just rewatch or share it with others who know that they can profit from today's session. The next question, is a separate category for high sensitivity really necessary? Could sensitivity not simply be viewed as a personality trait with HSP representing one end of the spectrum? Yes,
it is actually a spectrum, and it's a self-reported scale. So there is no definite cutoff. Like now you're highly sensitive at so much percent, below that you're not. So it is already a spectrum. And the studies I've read, they always say low SSP versus high SSP. So it's always also relative. And I think the labels are a help for a while to understand yourself and to know which books to read, right? So I would read different books or find different groups than somebody who's autistic or ADHD or dyslexic also, right? So it helps sort of find your channel of information.
Very nice, very good. Thank you. I hope the answer was good. I don't know, to be honest. Let's do one more, if there is one more, and then after that I really have to. So the next one, the last one for now. But if there are any questions left, I'm not sure right now how many we did. We will make sure that you receive the answer in a written way in the follow-up email that is always sent after the Lunchinars. The last question is, how should someone who is not high sensitive react or deal with a high sensitive person? I think you mentioned the communication aspect, but what would you say?
Yeah, I think generally is to have an open mind and to meet people as individuals, right? And ask what they need.
Ask what they need. Open communication, inclusive communication again.
Inclusive communication, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
And not, there's not without judging, but sort of like, hey, I didn't understand what you were just doing or what's going on. If you see something is different, and ask what's happening.
Thanks for this answer. I was just checking. There are 4 questions left, and I think we can promise you that this will be answered for sure in a short way, in the written way. And so for this purpose, I will contact you, Anja, after this event.
Of course.
I hope you can just write 1 or 2 sentence answers, maybe with some resources. And okay, so thank you so much to everyone for the questions. Let me just be sure if I didn't see any hands or anything else in the chat. I think everyone was quite happy with the questions in Menti. So I see lots of smiles and positive reactions here. Everything what Zoom has is being used. It's like crazy. Very, very good. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone. So this was the ENHANCE Lunchinar. Today's topic was focusing on neurodiversity and high sensitivity at work. We had the expert based in Aachen, RWTH Aachen University, which is also a member of ENHANCE University Alliance. We have Anja Dufresne today here. And this whole event took place and in the frame of the Diversity Days at RWTH Aachen, open to all public. I was very happy to see lots of ENHANCE universities, but also other countries, other universities, other alliances. So you are more than welcome. We will make sure to answer the questions and to send you the materials basically in our shared space. And let me just change the last slide. So just for those of you interested in this kind of innovative formats for 1 hour knowledge from some experts from our universities, the next topic will be a different one. Focusing on inclusive pedagogy. You can learn some and listen to some award-winning educators, in this case from our member university of ENHANCE Chalmers in Sweden. And so it will be on Friday, 12th June. And thank you, everyone. I hope to see you again and join our mission to shape Europe and make our campuses a better place. Thank you, Anja, again, and thank you, everyone, for listening and joining.
Thank you, Millie. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.